Thank you, and thank you very much. Okay. Our speaker now, Samantha Shifman. Samantha received her doctorate in pharmacy from Ferris State University. She is now a practicing pharmacist and manages a retail pharmacy near Detroit, Michigan. Sam's perspective is both unique and valuable, as she was diagnosed with HKPP as a young athletic teen. Her decision to pursue a degree in the medical field was partly fueled by her drive to help people better navigate and understand the challenges of living with periodic paralysis. With that, Samantha Shifman. Dr. Samantha Shifman.
Thank you. All right. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to... Better? Better? Good? All right. Okay. I just wanted to start out by actually asking you guys a question. So most of us go to the pharmacy somewhat regularly, whether it's once a week, once a month, once every 3 months. Either you're getting a prescription or something over the counter like a vitamin or medication for cough and cold, allergies. So how many people actually know the name of their pharmacist or pharmacists? Couple. That's good. We got a few people. All right. So I wanted to talk to you guys about why you should get to know your pharmacy team and the ways that we can help you. So we can start with me. My name is Sam. And so some of you know me, most of you know my mom. And like he said, I am a pharmacist and I have periodic paralysis. So I guess my main goal today is that everybody comes away with at least one piece of information that can help you to use your pharmacy to better manage your condition. So let's get started. So what exactly does your pharmacy do? Well, most obviously we dispense medications, but we're not just a dispensing machine. I like to think of the pharmacy as a safety net. So we're basically that last catch between medication orders and those medications actually getting to you. And then we're also a free and accessible resource. So we are one of the most accessible healthcare professionals, and I wish more people thought of us that way. Your pharmacy is probably open every day of the week, and we're open long hours, so we're always here for questions and to talk. We're also problem solvers, so hopefully you guys don't have a whole lot of obstacles when it comes to filling your medications, but whenever those do arise, we're here to help you with those. And then there's also some convenient services that your pharmacy might have that you guys might not know about. And then lastly, just wanted to give you guys some tips and tricks when interacting with your pharmacy to make things easier. So the most important thing I think is safety. So we are always checking for interactions for you guys. Every time you fill a prescription, whether it's the first fill, if it's multiple refills past, or if you've had this for 10 years. So we check for interactions between different medications. Every time you get something new, we want to make sure there's no interaction with things that you're already taking. But we're also looking for allergies for you. So whether you have an allergy to a class of medications or a component on one of those chemical structures, we're checking for all of those. And then also other allergies too that your pharmacist should know about. For example, one of my people who comes to my pharmacy is allergic to a certain yellow dye. So every time we fill a prescription for her, we have to check the manufacturer and we make sure that that's not included in any of the ingredients. And then something I think is really important for people like us is your pharmacy checks for interactions with disease states and conditions. So, I mean, an example of this, I only take potassium, so there's not really a whole lot of interaction there. But there are, for example, certain antibiotics that you can use, really common antibiotics that would knock me on my butt for maybe a day, maybe weeks to get back together. So just things that your pharmacist should know about to look for. Different like electrolyte disturbances is one of the interactions on like common antibiotics. So it's really important that your doctor or your pharmacist has all of your updated list of allergies and conditions. And then we do see some things come across, medication errors or whatnot. Most of those that I see are caused because of a patient is seeing a doctor that's not familiar to them. So this has nothing to do with the doctor's capability to diagnose or write prescriptions. It's just because you guys are seeing somebody who's not used to you. You're going somewhere like an urgent care or somewhere where it's really hectic, chaotic. They're trying to get you in and out and trying to treat you really quickly. And you might have somebody who's taking like a medication history, a disease history, who's different from the doctor you're seeing. So there's just passing information along. And then we have a condition that's not really easy to look up. So you can look up whatever you want on this condition. It could match absolutely nothing that you actually have. So these doctors don't really have a whole lot to go off of. You could be the only patient with this disease that they ever see the entire time they're practicing. So this is where your pharmacy comes into play. Get to know your pharmacy team and make sure that they have everything like basically in your profile of things to look for. So when I have a patient who comes to my pharmacy regularly and they have periodic paralysis, they go into an urgent care and I get a prescription over for an antibiotic for them and I know it causes electrolyte disturbances, that's something to look into. So your pharmacy's never just going to change a prescription or anything. We know we're not your doctor, but what we do is we will let you know what we found. We'll work with you and talk to your doctor and try and find something that's not going to cause that interaction to make sure that you guys are safe. Another thing that we look for are adverse reactions. So this is different from an interaction. This is like a side effect. So once again, your doctor could prescribe you the perfect medication and it's just right for you, but you're just unlucky. So if you are feeling something that doesn't feel right to you and you want to know if it's caused by one of your medications, your pharmacy is an excellent resource. We're open all the time. We take phone calls. You can come in and see us. So we always welcome questions. We'll be able to tell you if what you're feeling is a normal side effect and maybe if there's a way to fix that, maybe taking the medication at a different time of day, separating it from another one that you're taking, or maybe with food or something, we might be able to solve it. And we'll also be able to tell you if it's something that you need to be talking to your doctor about or if you need to seek medical treatment right away. Like I said, resource, I cannot enforce this enough. So we want to be asked those questions. You're never putting us out. We want to get those phone calls. We want to see you. Whether it's questions about medications, it could be something that's brand new to you. Maybe you want counseling on your medication. Maybe there was something you forgot to ask your doctor when you were in the office. Maybe it's something you've been taking for years and years and you just woke up one day and you were like, maybe I really don't know that much about this medication or what it's doing or what the side effects could be, or you just have a question. As far as questions go, we've heard pretty much everything, so nothing's a weird question for us. We're never going to judge you for anything that you ask us about. We're also here for information about devices, so not a whole lot of things that you would take for periodic paralysis, but like glucometers, blood pressure cuffs. We have training on those as well, so if you have questions about how to use something, or just like an injection, for example, if you have to give yourself an injection for a disease state, we're here to help with that as well. And then over-the-counter options, so your pharmacist most likely has their doctorate in pharmacy. If not, they still went to school for this, so we know a lot about all these drugs, whether they're behind the counter or over the counter. So how many people have taken something without your doctor telling you to? So this would be, I do this every day. I take an allergy medication. My doctor never told me to. They don't necessarily know that I'm taking it. Anything for a headache, anything like that. So a common misconception is that because something is available over the counter that it's safe. So this isn't necessarily true, and it's especially something that you should be asking questions about if you have a condition like we do. So for example, a class of medication called NSAIDs, so ibuprofen, Aleve, Motrin. Those medications, if you're taking those regularly, they're going to cause your body to retain sodium and water. And so I know a lot of us have issues with sodium, so just something that might be something you might want to know. So we're here for any questions like that. Your pharmacist is able to look for interactions between over-the-counter medications and anything you're taking, and then also those conditions. We'll also help you with cost effectiveness, so your pharmacist is not here to sell you anything, so it makes no difference to me in my day whether you buy 10 things over the counter or nothing. So we're going to be straightforward with you, whether maybe if something's a waste of money or if it's got a little bit too many ingredients. We like to go over whatever you're feeling with you and help you pick out a product that is best for whatever you're experiencing. Obstacles. So I know price is a big one for a lot of people. If you don't have a prescription coverage plan with a set copay, you might notice some increases in price. This is especially true if you're using coupons, so those coupons from like GoodRx, places like that, those can be really good, but those prices aren't actually guaranteed, so you could find something that says one price, bring it into your pharmacy, it could be a completely different price when they actually run it, and they're not set, so those prices are probably going to change every month when you come in. So something that I really wanted to touch on was, as far as insurance goes, they have preferred brands. So this is most commonly brand versus generic. But something that I encountered actually myself about a month ago that really caught me off guard was I went to get my potassium prescription filled and my price skyrocketed, more than doubled. So like hundreds of dollars more for no reason. There was no change in my plan, nothing to do with my deductible. So as far as these things go, your pharmacy is here to help you with any type of rejection. So we'll be able to tell you why anything rejects with your insurance. Whether it's too soon, we'll be able to tell you when you can fill it, if your insurance is saying they want you to use something else. But when you have a claim that goes through and your insurance is paying for it or saying that it's not rejected and your price goes up like that, I just want you guys to know and feel comfortable with calling your insurance company too. So I know a lot of people, when I ask them about that or tell them that they can call them, they're usually not aware that they can call them and ask them. So you're paying for this service. So they have to answer questions for you. You should be able to get answers as to why your prescription cost is changing. So when I called mine, they actually told me that my price was hundreds of dollars more for a different brand of potassium, even though they were both generic. So that was something that I hope we're not going to see too much of, but it is becoming a thing. So when I found out what it was going to cost me for brand A versus brand B, I just called the pharmacy and they order that other brand in for me every month now. So we can order specific things for you, whether it's a sensitivity or something like price. Your pharmacy is able to get a different brand for you as long as it's available. So something to keep in mind. Other holdups, things like prior authorizations, that's just your insurance basically dragging their feet, and your doctor's office has to contact them to get a medication approved for you. So all just kind of hang-ups that these can be solved by asking for your prescriptions early. So we really encourage people to ask for refills ahead of time. Your insurance company will pay for a certain period of time early, so a few days. And whether you ask for it early, if it's too early, we'll be able to tell you when it can go through. But I just think this is a really good idea for anybody with any condition. But if we are asking for our prescription, we're waiting until we're on that last pill and there's a hang up and you can't get it right away, that's going to affect a lot of things for you. So me, if I don't have my potassium, I'm not going to work, I'm going to have a really hard time. Some of us are going to get completely paralyzed and that can become life-threatening. So same things goes for medication availability. It is possible for your pharmacy to be out of stock of something. So this probably happens to everybody who goes to get potassium after I roll in and clean out the entire stock. Also, I get so much potassium that a pharmacy that I go to doesn't regularly carry that much. So there's not space on the shelves. Pharmacies don't have a back room like a grocery store does. So whatever we have there, that space, that's all that we have. So once again, asking for your medications ahead of time, they're able to order everything in that we need for you and then kind of overcome all of those obstacles. And then another thing I wanted to touch on was vacation. So what do you do if you need a refill of your medication and you're going to the PPA conference? That open communication with your pharmacy is very important. So as long as you let them know a few days ahead of time, we can either work with your insurance company, some will let you do a vacation override and we can just get you a supply right then. Otherwise, we can help you transfer it to a different pharmacy where you're going to so that you can pick it up when you're down there. So we're just trying to help you overcome these obstacles so you guys are never running out of medication because you have enough stresses in your life. That's not another thing that we need to be worrying about is, when am I going to get my medication? What do I do when I run out? So just keep talking with the pharmacy and we'll help you figure out things like that, how to transfer it, where to transfer it. It's really easy to do that. As far as convenience, a lot of pharmacies have scheduling programs that they can do for you. So this could be anything like an automatic refill, which is going to put your prescriptions through usually a little bit early too. So that way we're avoiding that delay and running out of medication. Also, pickup synchronization. So if you're going to the pharmacy multiple times a month, if you have different prescriptions, your pharmacy can work with you to try and get those combined to 1 or 2 days a month instead, so you're making less trips. Also, vaccinations, I think, are a big deal for anybody who has any condition. So I know when I'm sick, I have a really hard time maintaining my levels. I'm going to take way more potassium than I normally need to and still feel like crap. So I think it's really important that everybody's up to date on their vaccinations. One of the things that we've seen a lot in Michigan is that the doctor's offices either haven't been able to get in, the high-dose flu vaccine, for example, so they just send them all to the pharmacy. If we don't have these vaccines in stock, we can order them for you. So in most states, your pharmacist can give pretty much any vaccination. There might be limitations on age, so a really young child you might have to get a prescription for. So all you have to do is ask your pharmacy. They'll be able to tell you in your state what those regulations are, and if you do need a prescription, then we can contact your doctor. You can talk to them. So whether you're just out with the family and it's time for a flu vaccine, or if you see your doctor and they tell you, all right, you're due for shingles, you got to get pneumonia, all of these things, your pharmacy can usually do these. It's very little wait time, and you don't have to pay that copay to go into the office too, so it's pretty convenient. Some pharmacies too have on-site clinics, which I think is really cool. So they either have a PA or sometimes a nurse, and they can see you for minor conditions. So if you're sick, you need an antibiotic, anything minor. And I like this because they can interact directly with your pharmacy. So if we have somebody who is, okay, I need an antibiotic, but I can't have anything that's going to mess up my sodium, my potassium, anything like that, they can talk directly with your pharmacist and we can work together to help find something that's going to be safe for you. Also, delivery services. A lot of pharmacies, not a lot, but some do have these, whether it's a mom and pop pharmacy or maybe a big chain. So this could be really helpful if you have limitations for getting around. You can find a pharmacy that can deliver your medications to you. And then these are some of my tips and tricks. So as far as safety, it's really important that your pharmacy has that updated list of conditions and allergies. So like I said before, with those conditions, a lot of people that come to my pharmacy don't really think about it. And sometimes I'll ask them, okay, any conditions that you have that I should be checking for interactions? And they're like, why would I need to tell you that? So just like for us, things like that. It's really important that you can tell your pharmacist what to look for as well. So we don't really talk about conditions like these in pharmacy school. I don't think we really hit on these in med school or anywhere else. So your pharmacist might have never heard of this before. So know your triggers and know things that affect you to be able to tell them. So we can either add these in as allergies or put flags in your profile so that every time we get a prescription for you, we are looking for specific things that might set you off or might affect you. And then I think it's important to use one pharmacy as well. So we're going to be checking for interactions between a bunch of different medications. And if you're using multiple different pharmacies, it's really hard to keep track of everything and be looking into all of that. As far as resource, once again, I'm going to tell you, call your pharmacy, stop in and see your pharmacist. We are always here for the questions, counseling, any questions about over-the-counter products. Also for those obstacles, it's important to keep updated insurance information at your pharmacy. So sometimes your insurance company might send you a new card, and it might look almost exactly the same, but if even one number changes on that card, the information that we have at the pharmacy isn't going to be valid anymore. It's going to be out of date, so we won't be able to run it. And in some instances, we can look up insurance, but it depends on the pharmacy and what insurance you have, so we might not always be able to do that. So if you have the card, and even if you're not due for a refill, just stop in and let us throw that in there for you so there's no delay. As far as convenience, I think the medication scheduling is really convenient because it's going to put those medications through early, like I said, so when I come in and need all of that potassium, they're able to order it ahead of time. And then you can also ask for like a 30-day versus 90-day supply. So this makes me feel better knowing that I have this medication that I'm not going to be able to function without, and having kind of like that backstash is nice. So you can ask your pharmacy about that. In some states, we can fill a prescription for, say your doctor writes for a 30-day supply, but you have refills. We can give you whatever's on the life of that prescription. So I can just give you a 90-day supply, even if it was written for 30, as long as there are refills. In some states, you can't do that, but we can always ask your doctor for a prescription for a 90-day supply to make things more convenient for you. So basically, like those are some things that you guys can do to help make things easier for you. But I think that your pharmacist should help you with problem solving. So whether you have insurance rejections, we're here to help you. We can talk to your doctor, talk to your insurance, help come up with solutions to those obstacles. Always be checking for interactions and keeping you guys in the loop. So I like to let my patients know why I'm calling the doctor, or why I'm kind of hesitant about dispensing things. Also, for answering questions, whether it's prescription, over-the-counter, whatever, your pharmacist always has time for you no matter how busy the pharmacy is. So you should never feel like you're putting them out by asking a question. Also, I think your pharmacist should advocate with you. So whether it's needing a specific brand or having troubles with the insurance, I'm always there to help anybody who comes to my pharmacy get through whatever they need help with. So I think that if your pharmacist, if you don't feel that they're there for you and actually some type of resource that you can use, like this is my intern, Madison. She's adorable, but she gives terrible advice. So if you have a pharmacist that isn't living up to your expectations or isn't really helping you at all, then you can always transfer. So it's really easy to transfer your medication. So if it's something where maybe they never seem to have it in stock for you, sometimes it is hard to keep things in stock, but if you feel like there's always a problem or they never have time for you, or maybe they're just rude, it's really easy to transfer pharmacies. So if you are going to a chain pharmacy, you really just call the other pharmacy and they can pull everything right over. If you want to go to a completely different pharmacy in general, check with your insurance company, because some do limit you to one type of pharmacy that you can go to. But as long as you're good to go with insurance, just give the pharmacy a call and they do all the work for you. So you should be somewhere where you are comfortable and feel like you are not a burden to your pharmacy. So, do you guys have any questions at all?
Make me travel to Africa over here.
I have a few questions on like CoQ10, and does it affect periodic paralysis? Kind of what different things does it actually do? I've been tested and had some tests with low CoQ10 levels, and just like I said, kind of wanted to know information about that if you could.
Actually, do you have, Sam?
Go for it.
So Frank Lehmanhorn had put me in touch with some Chinese researcher that he was working with, and they had reported 2 patients where they supplemented CoQ10. Forgive me that I don't remember the doses, but it was to some typical over-the-counter doses, either twice a day or 3 times a day. And both those patients reported like total resolution of their paralysis. So, I guess it's within the possibility. It's a very benign thing. I don't necessarily recommend doing it per se, but if you're out of options, I don't know, Steve or Frank or Louis, if you have any opinions on that. There are 3 forms of CoQ10? Okay, rock on. You want to see? Hang on one second. Oh, you got it. What are you making?
So it turns out there are 3 forms of coenzyme Q10. There's a water-soluble form, there's an alcohol-soluble form, and there's an unusual engineered form from New Zealand, which I have nothing to do with. So one of them is ubiquinone, another one is ubiquinol, and the last one is MitoQ.
So ubiquinone is the one that he was working with. Do you have any comments? Or?
No.
No? Oh.
New news.
Okay, new news. Okay, next question was...
Over here. I just have a general question. If somebody, there are a lot of forms of potassium. There's liquid, powder, pills. There's gluconate versus chloride. There's long-acting versus short-acting. Often the doctors don't really know much to advise on that. Is the pharmacist the person who would have good advice about which one should you be using? Because there's probably 100 different products.
I think the pharmacist might be a good resource if the doctor had specific questions, if they knew what they were looking for with a patient. We can help you with, half-life, release. As far as specific patient, if somebody came up to me and said, do I take extended or this? I'm not your physician, so I probably wouldn't be the best person to tell you which one that you should be taking. But if your doctor had questions about that, we could work with your doctor to figure that out.
I think the doctors who know the best about this is nephrologists. The question is which counterion, may affect acid-base balance in the blood. But the other question is, how much potassium, whatever, do you need to affect the acid-base balance versus just straight-up supplement potassium? And I feel like you'd need higher pharmacologic doses to change anything acid-base than versus supplementing potassium. But I don't know, Frank, do you have any...
No, I have no idea. Usually it's not affected. Usually it's not affected. I have never seen a case where it was.
Doesn't matter whether you do citrate or chloride.
Yeah.
Any. Okay, we had a question over there. I keep on stealing the mic from...
Thank you. My question's kind of related. So we talked about this yesterday, but I'll make it public. When I go to the pharmacy, I get potassium in the powder form. And I often get very different, in each visit I get a different type of potassium, different company, different blend, different flavor, and I can't really tell consistently which one I should be receiving or if I should demand a certain type. And it kind of bleeds into the question that was just asked, but do you have a recommendation for how to handle that with a pharmacist, how to handle that with your company or HMO or otherwise?
As far as to get a specific one in?
Well, one is, why do they constantly change? I don't really understand that process. And 2 is, do we advocate for getting the same one all the time, or are we subject to what is given to us?
So basically, whenever I order a drug, I get whatever they feel like sending me. So I can get one manufacturer, one NDC of a drug 1 week, and I could get a completely different one the next week or the next day. So it kind of depends on my supplier for things that I send them. And then each pharmacy has their own preferred brands too. So Sometimes I'll tend to get one over the other, but it really is. But you definitely can request specific brands. I think you should just be open with your pharmacy and let them know if you have a sensitivity or if there's one that works better, because we can make a note in people's profiles or wherever saying that this works better for this patient or this patient can't tolerate this, and we can order in that specific one for you.
Okay, you answered this to me, but I'll just ask for the general public. I find there's a lot of sugar in the powder that I take, which I would like to avoid, or aspartame. And you mentioned yesterday about how we look that up on the internet and try and be careful with that because it's counteracting what we're actually taking the potassium for.
Yeah. So what we did, we just pulled up the package insert. So if you're curious about certain things, you can always ask your pharmacy. But if you wanted to look for yourself between a couple different manufacturers for what you wanted to take, you can pull up the package insert. So you can just Google the name and then the manufacturer and then package insert, and that'll come up. And they're pretty wordy and boring, but they always have a section of ingredients. So you can look it up and see every inactive ingredient or active ingredient that's in there to find out which one has it and which one doesn't.
And then in terms of supply chain, manufacturers sell to middlemen, distributors who sell to the pharmacies, and sometimes they sell directly to the large chains. And depending on the deals that are cut, they're going to get preferred distribution at the pharmacy level. Many times, like a CVS will carry many different brands of potassium, and so they'll with one preferred, but they'll still have the other ones. So if you request, no, I want such and such brand, so long as it's in their stockpile, they can order it and get it for you.
Do you know of any potassium chloride powders that come unflavored, unsweetened? I mean, that I have tried every flavor. I can't stand that sickening sweet, especially when we have to take so much of it. I would rather just take something that tastes plain and salty, honestly.
Yeah.
Are there any? Because my doctor doesn't seem to.
She seems to have an answer there.
Yeah.
So there's FRK unflavored, which I don't know. We'd have to package insert it and see if it's just K.
Is it bicarbonate or is it?
It looks like it's potassium citrate.
And that shouldn't matter, right?
Yeah, it shouldn't matter in theory. Sure. But it is fizzy, So the other thing you can do, which I don't know, I haven't explored, compounding pharmacies often will take just the ingredient, the active ingredient, and make their own bunch of additives and give it to you. So you can do that for creams, you can do that for pills, and that's another mechanism of getting just potassium chloride or whatever without the flavoring.
Thank you. When I have an attack, I have a full body attack, and my jaw locks, and I can't swallow. And so I can't take potassium when I have an attack, so I just have to wait it out. Do you have any knowledge of a dissolving, like the Ativan you can put in your cheek and it dissolves?
I have not heard of a dissolving potassium. Has anybody else?
No, that's the answer I've had before. I was just hoping you might.
It was the SOL. I'm so sorry. Just leave the abbreviation.
I just have a quick comment about the potassium citrate. Just an interesting fact that may be of a lot of your interest. The stomach acid is required, or it's better absorbed with potassium when your stomach acid is lower. So if you're on something that's an acid reducer, like Prevacid or Pepcid or something like that, then your potassium won't be absorbed as well. And the citrate is actually acidic, so it's better absorbed. So that may be of interest in some of you, especially you're dependent on the absorption.
Okay. I found that there's bulk suppliers of just straight up potassium chloride or straight up potassium citrate. Does anybody else use stuff like that? And you can just.
So how do you dose it? I mean, you get a ton of it. How do you know how much to take?
Well, it says it's for supplementing in a diet, in your drinks or shakes or whatever. And so it tells you how much in a part of a teaspoon, and then it tells you with milligrams. And then if you calculate it out? Is that like, am I going against the?
No, so I mean, this is like the quality control issue is there. When the pharma company makes it, that 20 milligrams, exactly your dose. You're not weighing it yourself. They've pre-weighed it. You hope that they've passed FDA inspection and it's all good. So long as you know the conversion of the grams to milliequivalents and then dose whatever dose you need, in theory it should be safe. But there's just a lot more room for error is all. And you error for underdose. I guess you can't really overdose, but you still want to get it within a reasonable range.
I just wanted to add one detail about how the system works. Under FDA regulations, anything more than 99 milligrams of elemental potassium has to be by prescription. So that's where the dividing line is between the prescription and the over-the-counter. So you should just know that in terms of what you get in each. So all the long-acting ones tend to have more, and so those aren't over-the-counter as far as I know. So I think that's the way the system works. And I think we have one correction here.
So it turns out that there is a form of potassium that's over-the-counter that comes in capsules, and so I use it just in my cheek or sublingually at times. It's limited to the same sort of 100 milligrams at a time, so you might have to take many of them, but it's basically potassium bicarbonate. You can get it on Amazon. It's called potassium bicarb, and so it's better than doing nothing, I would say. But I would say any kind of potassium in a capsule, you could probably just chew it, but it's probably terrible for your teeth. But anyway, that's what I do at times if I need rapid potassium capsules.
I just have a general question on how what tools are available, I should say, to you for measuring interactions of drugs, and if there's a limited number of drugs beyond which you have no clue. I mean, I know that people, my wife in particular, has at different periods in her medical history have been on more drugs than other times, and it seems that at certain points, nobody could really tell me what the interaction of those drugs may be.
So I guess every time we go through the verification process, we're checking for interactions, and to the best of my knowledge, there isn't a limit on the number of medications. It could be a drop off from time period. So if you took something like 3 years ago that you're not taking anymore, or if you took it at my pharmacy 3 years ago and now get it somewhere else, I might not be able to see that, so I might not know to look for it. But whatever we don't have in our system that helps us pull things up, we can look up things as well. So I can always pull up. Every pharmacy has at least 2 references that have to be available to us, so we can look up on different sites as well and plug in pretty much whatever we want. So I don't believe there is a limit for what we can look for.
If we want to get back to the question about potassium real quick, I was able to pull up some information that I realized I should share with you. For starters, FRK says unflavored 10, 20, and 25 MEQs does not contain any natural or synthetic dyes, flavors, or sweeteners. Of course, they do make flavored ones, so obviously you have to get the unflavored to get that. But my experience real quick with FRK is last year, if you just go to their website and go under patient, it says that they cannot send you samples, but your doctor can request the samples. So basically you just fill out a form, you get in touch with them, and then they send you samples to the doctor's office through your doctor for you. And if you find that works for you and that's something you want, then they can prescribe it and your pharmacy can order it.
Yeah, I will say that someone from the Philippines had contacted me, said they couldn't get potassium, and I called the FRK people, and they sent me like a whole box of it, which is still sitting in my apartment because I don't know how to get it to Philippines for customs, but they were very nice, so.
Could you speak about expiration dates on medication? Is it just lose its effectiveness? Is it harmful to your body?
That depends on the specific medication. So there are some medications, like certain antibiotics, that will start to decompose and form toxic pieces. So like antibiotics I would never keep around. Other things like vitamins, those, like as your pharmacist, I'll never tell you to take anything that's past the expiration date, but if I had like some calcium at my house that expired a decent time ago, I'd probably still use it. The expiration date that you get on your prescription label is generally 1 year from the date that it was dispensed. So it could have come from a bottle that doesn't expire until 2025, but that information isn't on the actual label. So as far as prescriptions go, there's certain things I would be extremely careful with. If it's like potassium, you can't really guarantee potency after the expiration date, but you could always call the company too. They have studies that they don't post in certain things, whether it's because they don't want you to keep it forever, but they'll be able to, like, I've called them on certain things to ask them, all right, so if this is this old, what's the study look like? And they can tell me, well, we've studied up to this point and this is fine.
Yeah, so pharmaceutical companies are required to do stability, and they have accelerated stability and just, long-term stability. And I think the regulation is like you can't be more than 3 years. But having owned a pharmaceutical company in the past, I know that Levaquin can last, and any quinolone can last well beyond the expiration date. Usually the drugs lose potency rather than become harmful. Tetracyclines, there was an idea that maybe it would be hepatotoxic, toxic to the liver if they expired. So maybe with antibiotics you want to not use it, but certainly with elements, calcium, potassium, magnesium, those things don't really go bad. I mean, prefer to use fresh, but if that's all you have, that's all you have. And Louis has a point, and then
I have a quick point, so while I'm bringing it over to him, it's partially an FDA issue that you have to go through a process with the FDA showing it's stable up to a certain point, and people probably don't bother past a certain point.
Thanks, Samantha. That was very helpful. I have a question about the interactions, what is it? Interactions between drugs. What's the process for those things going into a database? Because I could have a really bad day, and it happened that I took potassium and an antihistamine, and I say, I had a really bad day, so this must be bad. That obviously isn't necessarily a real interaction. What's required to get something into the database as being a real drug interaction? There must be some bar over which one has to go to get something qualified as a true interaction, because some things that I think are interactions maybe really aren't, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, I presume that there are interactions, there's so many drugs, and sure, they're used by lots of people, and so there are many permutations of different drugs that different people around the country or the world are taking, but there are presumably lots of drug interactions that aren't yet recognized because nobody knows what to look for. If someone dies from taking these two drugs, well, people are going to look into that. But if there's some other less severe result, interaction that results in something less severe phenotypically, then, So I just wonder where that database comes from and how it's vetted in terms of things that get in or don't get in.
There are three things that they might do. One is if drowsiness is a side effect of one and drowsiness is a side effect of the other, it cross-references that, the two drugs that you just entered in the drug checker has drowsiness, so then it flags it. And then it assigns some risk level, which I don't know how they'd assign the risk level. The other is there are standard drugs depending, and I'm not a regulatory person, but like cyclosporin, so every anti-seizure drug may be required to be cross-tested against cyclosporin, and then they'll see if it affects drug levels by however they test it. And then finally, drugs are metabolized by different cytochromes and in the liver, and if one drug is by cytochrome C, 3A4, and the other drug is cytochrome 3A4, again, since the 3A4 is on both drug, it cross-references and says one may increase the metabolism or decrease the metabolism of the other. So those are kind of like the three ways that I think that the database is populated.
There was a point there about, I still don't like Merck because they quit making our Daronide years ago. And I'm sure they had a whole bunch in the warehouse, and that it hit that date they wouldn't give it to us. There was probably truckloads, but that's a side point. But on the potassium, I was on K-Lite for years, and then the insurance company switched me to the Everk. And but one time the nurse wrote it up wrong, and I got I have the bicarbonate, and I got plain potassium chloride. It was terrible. I'll take my orange any day. But there are so many that it's my insurance company right now, and I can't really switch because they're paying for my my Cavasis, and so I'm scared to change. But they will only pay for one type of potassium, and I don't like to take just that, so I'm paying for Everk myself. The druggist called me, and he said, "Why are you taking 2?" Because the doctor's prescription is for 5 of this, and the other one is for 4 of this. And I said, "Okay, I appreciate you calling me up on this because I take 3 of this, and sometimes 2 of this, sometimes less." He said, "Okay." I said, "Because I've been doing this for 40-some years or more." And then there was another thing. Druggists can be really good people. I was taking the Eli Lilly 100 pills, and it was costing me back then like $8, which was a lot of money 50-some years ago. And the druggist said, "Well, I can get you this APC brand or something like that, and it's got 1,000 in it, and it'll cost you $14. And so they're good people.
I just wondered how I know which antibiotics or which medications are not good for me. I'm new at this. So.
Yeah. So I think having a conversation with your pharmacy is really important. So you can always go in there, even if you're not sick or anything and you don't see yourself getting an antibiotic in the near future, go in and talk to them. So it's always something that we can look for. It's just some classes of medication can cause different things. And like, I know before, like I've had doctors write me off before where I've told them, well, I'm worried about this because the side effect is this, or it might affect electrolytes. And they're like, no, you're fine. People don't notice that. But it knocked me on my butt and it was awful. And I like couldn't go to class for a few days. So just talk to your pharmacy about it because we'll look for specific things that affect you. So, I mean, because there's so many different antibiotics out there, and we can work with your doctor too. If you can even be in your doctor's office, for example, and say, hey, I talked to my pharmacy. I know that I can't have this, this, or this. And your doctor can call us. We have doctors call us sometimes, and they say, hey, I'm trying to write this for my patient. We know you have this on file. What do you think between this one and this one? And we can tell them. If he says, I don't know, then say, do you mind calling my pharmacy?
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, that's.
So, listen, some things are going to be trial and error. There are some things where you know that they cause potassium to go high, or maybe they go potassium to go low, whether it's a blood pressure or an antibiotic. And those things are pretty straightforward. If you have a choice between something that raises potassium and you're hyper, maybe you want to avoid that one. But sometimes it's just trial and error, and that's the way it is. Penicillin was up there as what? For as not to take. Do you guys? I honestly have to look up if penicillin is causes potassium retention or not, and we should check that. It depends on your case by case basis. We're gonna do last question and then we're gonna wrap up. Last 2 questions and then we'll wrap.
Just a quick thing about penicillin. There's some form of penicillin has potassium in it, and some form has sodium in it. So that's probably the reason why. But usually those are IVs, not orals.
Okay. I have noticed, and I've talked to other people that seem to have this interesting issue, that with the potassium chloride, the powder packets, that if they taste really salty, like when I take my first drink of it, if it tastes really salty, that my potassium is normally high or good. And if it tastes sickeningly sweet, that my potassium is low and I need it. Is that a common thing? I mean, like I said, I've talked to other people that seem to have it. How common is that? Something else that others experience? And it's only the potassium chloride powder. Ideas?
I'm gonna defer to the neurologist in the room. Anyone have any comments on that? Show of hands. Does anyone else feel that way with different?
I've definitely heard this a lot of times.
So Mickey, hold on a minute.
I've definitely heard this a lot of times from many of you, and maybe we'll get a show of hands of other people who've noticed that with potassium chloride. Potassium gluconate doesn't seem to have much taste, and people don't get that effect. I don't know what that is, but it sounds incredibly interesting, and if somebody knows of a PhD student who wants to do a really interesting project, and it may be very useful, as was described, in getting a sense of what you need. But I don't know of any real science on this, but I've heard this multiple times.
Well, Sam, you did a great job. Thank you so much for bringing up the rear.